Assalamualaikum and good day to everyone. My name is Anissa binti Mustaqim, matric number 2015736, and this is my group member. In this video, me and my group will talk about how romantic poetry sought critique against the modern enlightenment, which are found in the poetry of William Wordsworth, John Keats, and Emily Dickinson. This video will argue that the society, particularly in the age of romantic, are drawn into the modernization of the world, in which they forgot to appreciate the nature and spiritual material. At the end of this video, it will be concluded that the human instinct will always take us back to our roots, no matter how modern our world has become. Romantic poetry has a major theme involving organic and spiritual values like the mother nature, and that as seen in the poem Ode to the Nightingale by John Keats. In that poem, Keats expressed his fascination of the nightingale while also expressed death, in which it reflects the person's health condition. Moreover, it portrays the person's feeling, in which Keats begins to appreciate mortality as his death is closing in. The modern age is secular in way science and technology thrive, which are prominent between 19th and 20th century. This idea prompted society to disregard religion and spiritual material in exchange for logical reasoning. During this time, religion is mostly abandoned as the world arising industrially. Romantic poetry emerged as an intellectual movement to react against modernization due to the fact that industrialization has taken toll on the nature, causing pollution and other ethical misconduct, such as ignorance. In other words, when humans disregard religion and spiritual material, they will not uphold morality and appreciate the nature. Hence, this is where the Romantic movement plays a vital role during the Enlightenment. After modernization exists, modesty becomes a great challenge to everyone, no matter their religion or race. So, in relation to the modernization, Dickinson wrote poems as a basis for the transgression. It does so in ways that expose the arrangement of social roles in America in terms of race and religious ones. The modest needs, which she so minimally named in her poem, I mean to have but modest needs. It disguises her claim to content that ultimately encompasses and displays heaven. The use of economic imagery of income explores how economic return itself has, in the American tradition particularly, often perform theological work. Here she used it to point away from divine to human desire. Indeed, her prayer competes against rather than supplicating God. The poet is not, as it turns out, asking for a condescending share in the world to come, but rather for an independent life in this one. And we know that Emily Dickinson is one of the poets who played a significant role during the Romantic movement by representing and critiquing cultural issues on American identity that is central in the 19th century America, not only as an interest but also as a textual method. Modesty becomes a scene of contrast between competing claims of identity within hierarchies and indeed across a broad range of cultural arenas. These include religious, economic, and social orders. These in fact enter Dickinson's poems as textual strata, not only as subjects or references, but as textual levels and procedures. Dickinson's text acts as sites in which a range of cultural domains come into conjunction and disjunction. Each enters the poem as a distinctive mode of language. Gender, race, religion, art, and economy each acts as a constitutive language in Dickinson's text, invoking each other but also finally refusing to come into the kinds of enlightenment that her figure system, her chance of analogy, her elaborate patterns first seem to promise. This linguistic and figure entry of different cultural domain is one avenue through which her texts engage surrounding cultural discourses without being reduced to them. Furthermore, Dickinson's use of race in her poem is highly influenced with her whiteness or her identity and privilege as a white upper-class woman of 19th century during the time of slavery. The concept or idea of whiteness that she frequently illustrates in her works might function as a sign of the historical privilege of Dickinson. For instance, in the poem The Malay Took the Pearl, a white upper-class woman fears the sea and thus lost the pearl to someone first described as a Malay, then as a swarthy fellow, and finally as the Negro, who demonstrates an erotic self-confidence the speaker lacks. This view has its own kind of racism, with the association of dark-skinned person having high sexual drive, which fits the conventional stereotype towards a dark-skinned person. It is evident that Dickinson is a white person who identifies her psychological difference from other races and ethnics. Such sentiments were acceptable at the time, since slavery was still in existence during Dickinson's period, and so mistreatment of black people was widely accepted and common. Despite differences in race or religion, many individuals in the present day have grown more socially conscious and tolerant of one another. However, racial prejudices, as shown in her poem, are still visible in the modernized society, since racism is deeply ingrained in society, which is why this issue has not been resolved despite had undergone global modernity. Interestingly, Dickinson is a writer who is very doubtful of religion. Dickinson's meditation on solemnity has sparked plenty of interpretations, which are often linked to Dickinson's spirituality. She could neither accept nor reject the idea of religion, and her doubts pushed her in the direction of naturalism. For example, in the poem A Slam Thing, it was, I said, Dickinson's habit of dressing all in white suggests that for Dickinson's whiteness connotes her desire to the ordinary life rather than to concern about religious or spiritual matters. We can understand Dickinson's desire to escape from uncertainty of religion, race, and sexuality by reaffirming her whiteness, as well as her desire to explore and to exploit racial, religious, and sexual differences. Similarly, in today's society, many people have a feeling of uncertainty of religion, belief, and teachings, which then result ones to opt for atheism or secularism. They are more concerned with material values or ordinary life rather than seeking spiritual fulfillment. In short, Dickinson poetry does have an influence on society today in terms of race relations as well as religion and philosophy. Dickinson's writing indicate that religious symbolism joins with racial ideology and Western aestheticism create a perdurable racist mentality. The attitudes and mentality exhibited in her writing are still apparent and occurring in the 21st century, either in everyday life or in the literary works. As we may have entered a post-industrial society, and print began to give way to electronic as the primary mode of communication in the late 20th century, romantic literature has become less and less of a natural phenomenon, and more of a single episode in a much longer history of letters in Western society. There are hints that true comparative literature, that is, romantic literature, will be revealed to be even less of a cultural or human absolute and more of a product of a specific time and place if we knew enough to construct meaningful comparison with the literary system of other advanced cultures. In the Prelude by William Wordsworth, he described his part is not that of the culture as a whole, but that of Romanticism and its art, which left bourgeois society with its rational ways of thinking and machines producing cheap, identical products in search of a more authentic and satisfying being and art in the depth of nature, the historic past, Gothic or primitive, and the human mind. However, as the Romantic art ideology has lost its power to compel belief or even to pique the interest of many people, it has become inescapably obvious that literature, like the other arts, is a part of the culture, existing in the real world as both a subjective concept and a set of objective social realities. That's all from us. Thank you.